Hey, what's up, nerds? It's Paul here at Radio Free Hammer Hall. We are here doing another episode of WarHAMMERED, the long-awaited return. This evening, I've got Martin Orlando from the fine state of New Jersey and Ryan Price from Dananda.
Hey, guys.
Hello, friend.
We might have some other guests filtering through at some point. It's just sort of an open invitation to a bunch of people right now. If you happen to be watching in the comments and you would like to join us, feel free to drop a comment. I'll send you a link if I actually know who you are. So yeah, we've been having some conversations ahead of time, trying to get our heads around some ideas of things to actually talk about. And Martin actually asked a good question. Yeah. I thought very good question.
Would you like me to talk about it?
Like my approach to breaking down battle tomes and picking it apart, and like, you know, the 3.5 hour video on Nurgle that I did with Dan Caravan, like how do you take the one faction and talk about it for 3.5 hours and feel like you didn't hit everything? So I guess, you know, you were talking specifically about Lumineth.
Yeah.
You know, there's plenty of other armies out there as well that, you know, need that treatment. And I think I'm going to take this up as a challenge to learn Lumineth.
Good luck.
I'm looking for a new project at this point. Like I've done Nurgle to death. I've done Free Guild to death, like Cities of Sigmar. I've done a whole bunch of Slaves to Darkness now. I've done some Skaven. I've dabbled in other things in the past. Like, I got to pick a new army to go after. And Caradron Overlords I've done a bunch on as well. So the question becomes, like, you know, what's next? Well, might as well delve into an army experimentally that I don't own and see if I can learn how to play the army and break it down and, you know, see what's going on with it. So Ryan, of course, is here, and he is a hater of elves and a lover of undead things.
Yeah, dude, I don't think you need to do Lumineth, man. I think you need to go to the dark side. Join us. We have 5 different units and only one good list
of Bone Reapers, but they are cool models. They are excellent. Like I was revisiting the Bone Reapers design interview for some like inspiration and just like taking some notes for some friends. And I was just looking at how the studio, like, Ryan, that's a shame that they never put up that castle. Ryan, do you remember that Bone Reapers castle that they made for in the trailers?
Yeah, that was so good. I would have mashed a few of them.
Yeah, and people weren't quite aware for a while, like, if it was a kit or not, because there were clearly like different segments that were repeating with different assets, and so someone in the studio made that with a machine. It wasn't just like handmade with foam and a hot wire cutter.
If I may interrupt, very important addition to the stream, Jack from Reroll.
Hey, nice to see you, Jack.
What is going on? Yeah, like the only problem with the Ossiarch Bone Reaper army, like, just to completely hijack the whole Lumineth thing, is the fact that you almost spend as much in skeleton horde contrast as you do on models.
Yeah.
So
unless you're like me and I want to paint and bone like Vince does, and that requires about 20 paints.
Yeah, but I once tried to paint like Vince and then snapped every single one of my paintbrushes and realized I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to be like even close to. I can't even pick colors as good as he can, let alone paint. So.
I just got to pick pink and teal, and you're good to go.
Yeah, like I kind of did. almost with my Lumineth.
Yeah, you're close. You're close to a Vince Venturella paint scheme.
Hey, but my general has no teal. My general is all like a restaurant in Tuscany with those colors.
I just put my models up on the fence and shoot at it with a paintball gun. And then once there's two colors on each model, I'm like, battle ready, done. Let's go, next army.
Don't forget egress, and then you're good. Or snow.
True.
Jack, I had a quick question for you.
Yep.
So there's a guy who's been responding to me. I'm painting a bunch of like elves, and my whole family helped chip in today and paint some scenery. So we have now a table for a 4x4 for there's a new game store in my neck of the woods called Greg's Games. There's a guy responding to me. His name is the Twitter handle of Oak's Hand, and he's followed by you, Lore Master Sotek, Doug. I'm like, did he used to be a content creator or?
I'm not. I recognize the name, but I don't think he was a content creator. I just think he's a fan of the YouTube content stuff.
Gotcha. Very nice. Yeah, I'll find out on Sunday. I was just like, is he like secretly like a famous Warhammer dude? Yeah. I'm like, oh wow.
But I could be wrong. I'm not that savvy about keeping up.
Well, you're a famous Warhammer dude, so I figured I'd ask. I do.
Jack, can you help me? Can you help me talk Paul out of going Lumineth, please, bro?
Well, I'm going Lumineth.
What?
Point of order. First of all, I'm not buying a single Lumineth model. All I am doing is learning the army at the behest of Martin Orlando, so I can teach him how to play Warhammer properly.
Warhammer better, not properly. I did come in 5th place at that GT at Mythicos with Stormcast chickens. I had 6 Paladors in my army, and I came in 5th place.
How many people were at that event?
Like 40, like 38 or 40. Like it wasn't great. Yeah.
All right.
When was it?
That was like 2018. It was a lifetime ago in terms of the meta.
You pulled the machine in one.
That was the event, I believe. Rob, Pennsylvania Rob, lost to Chai. They were on table 1 with Daughters and Legion of Asgore, and no one was having a good time. And like 2.5 hours later, no one was having a good time still. Yeah. Ryan, in our chat, that's Ashen Tyrant, if you remember.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. There are multiple Robs who play Chaos Dwarves, and one of them lives in Pennsylvania, and that's Pennsylvania Rob.
I like Pennsylvania Rob.
Okay.
I'm hoping Pennsylvania Rob pops into the chat here with us at some point, but he probably won't.
No, he likes his solitude. But anyway, so I just wanted to play Warhammer a little more consistently, and like I've been trying to get in games with the Lumineth. It's always a struggle given the global pandemic, and I've been getting stuff in here and there. The WhatsApp groups are kind of a buzz, but I don't think anyone's taken a single Lumineth. I think one person has taken a Lumineth list to like a GT recently. Like if you look at the stats provided by AOS Shorts, which are pretty good, he tries, and always he has the top 5 finishers. But if you can track through BCP, like who attends what and what armies are there, not a lot of elves yet because they're also a new army. But no one's really finished with them yet to really determine like what's a good sort of top like build so far. And there are a lot of strong builds, which are people's like, you can do this, you can do this. The internal balance of the book is actually rather robust. So you can come up with like the Eumetrica sort of Stone Guard phalanx. You can do techless in a bunch of Venari units. You can do Venari and no techless, which is kind of what I've been running. But we haven't really gotten the data yet to try and crack the code. And there might be a school of thought who needs to crack the code. Just have fun and play what you practice the most with. But I've just found it's a very odd book. It's excellent in most ways, but like the limited hero choices, the lack of a dedicated hammer unit outside of Avalanor, which is a single special character model with 6-inch movement. It's just very odd. And there was an article just to summarize my point. Darren Watson does his series off for Honest Wargamer, where he interviews really like well known like top players, tries to get an idea of how they build their lists and why. And the player came up with a list with 25 Dawn Riders in it. And my only critique was, if that ever plays against a Destruction Army, I'm not sure how it's going to do very well.
I think with that, what you're saying basically, well, for me, being a non-Lumineth player, because I just kill them, I don't play with them, is they seem like, when I play against them, they seem like a jack of all trades, but a master of none. So they do everything that I would want my army to do, and they do it reasonably well. But they don't have that one list that I've come up against that's just master of everything it needs to be to just wipe the floor with you, turn 3, game's over, see ya.
Yeah.
Techless was
kind
of he was like gateway drug into the Lumineth, like because I picked him up just because I was one of the people who did like the model. I actually think it looks better when the arms are posed down. I was going to do that with mine. And just
people aren't ready for my Techless conversion. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Anyway, so continue.
Just how, like, because I was playing a lot of Seraphon at the time, and I was just it wasn't fun. And so being able to just like shut down Croak was nice. And I'm like, because I just had Techless in like an order list, and I'm like, I bought the book, and I'm like, oh, there's a lot of good stuff in here. And I think they are. I don't know if they're going to be in the they're going to replace like the top 3, but I think they're maybe right below that. So.
Yeah,
they're scary. Like if I'm going to play against them, then I know it's going to be difficult. Like it's not one of those armies where you can go, I could possibly win this pretty easy if I just do this shenanigan. Like you have to take the army seriously. No matter what the list is, really, because there's a lot of dangerous options in there playing against them anyway. So they're as an enemy of them, I definitely respect them as an army. They're not easy.
I always dislike using this comparison, but it's like they're not Skaven. I believe, won against Skaven one time since they got their book, regardless of what army I'm playing against. And Skaven is just like, they have every option you could want, and they do it well. Maybe their army terrain is a little too good, but even without it, they have the ability to just bring out hordes, debuffs, ranged mortal wounds, tanking damage with like the Storm Vermin and the Storm Fiends. But
look at the life. Just looking at AOS, so take away fantasy or world for a second.
Yeah,
the lifespan of Skaven over AOS is vast compared to the small amount of time that Lumineth has spent in the AOS universe. So I think over time, probably not next year, but over time, Lumineth will expand, and then they will start to have that as well. But the reason that Skaven has that advantage as well is because it's Skaven, and it's supposed to be
models from like the 1990s in there.
Yeah, but there's just so many numbers of rats that law of mathematics says one of them's going to be good, so it's going to happen.
That is true. Have you played any games with them yet, Jack?
The Lumineth? No, just I played. I played games of order, so I had the Wardens and the Sentinels and Techless in the list with Croak and Astrolith Bear.
Oh, so peak tomfoolery.
And then a unit of Arcanauts, and that was kind of the list. And it's I beat people who because we were able to do just my gaming club. We had a in-house tournament. So that was a lot of fun. We kind of all pitched in $20, and first place got it and stuff. But
I just want to say for one moment, Seattle has it lucky. You have Rerolling Ones, Doug, and Kelly Freeborg all in the same gaming club. That would be that makes for pretty wicked club nights.
And Tom, I don't know. He mentioned maybe getting a job up here, and because Doug's moving to Iowa, which is good for him because he's going to be able to go full time. But I'll miss him.
Yeah. Yeah, we wish him the best. I was talking to him today because he put out a little contest thing. He's giving away, I think, a voucher or something if you can build the best Warcry list. I'm sorry, the best Slaves to Darkness army using as many Warcry units as possible. And but he had to amend it to Slaves to Darkness because I just sent him my Lumineth 2K army, which is almost entirely Warcry units.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually the one that pointed that out to him. Like,
okay,
hey, this is not really. I think you mean Warcry war bands, like the ones made for Warcry, but you don't really say that.
Yeah.
Like, you should probably say these should all be Slaves to Darkness lists.
All right.
With the exception, if we get points in the adequate amount of time, Doc could be there as well.
Yeah, that's true. Like, I really I hope that War Scroll is slightly overcosted because I don't want to see 8 to 10 of those in an army ad nauseum.
Yeah, those guys teleporting around at will is going to be. That's a tool that Doc did not need.
Yes, if that unit is like 140 points per min, I think that's gonna reel it in a lot. But anyway, the thing I think that perplexes me the most about elves, and I think which is probably going to change, like you'll see the dynamic of the army change a lot very quickly, is their hero choice. So if you really were curious about what's a weird holdup for them, Paul, this is the Techless army. I know you don't really have the book yet or anything. If you read any amount of the lore, you'll see that there are 2 halves to Heish. One is the Tyrian side, one is the Techless side, one is the Sun side, one is the Moon side. We have the Wizard army. This is the Moon side. So all of the army leaders are wizards. You don't really have the option of taking something that's not a wizard, which can really take a hit. So it's always going to be, your general is almost always going to be a little weedy dude with 5 wounds and a 5-up save. And in this day and age, that just doesn't cut it.
Yeah, that's going to die to a skull from OBR real fast.
Yes. And in some cases, it's like I some people don't even know to kill my general because then that turns off Avalenor. The mountain spirits have this thing where if they are within 12 inches of a stone mage, they count as having taken no wounds on their damage table. Ooh, so when I tell people that they haven't killed Avalenor and Avalenor is going to hit for up to 30 damage, they go, "What? What?" He's like on 2 wounds and still doing 30 damage. Giants wish they had that. I was talking with Vince actually the other day, where it's like, well, where's the math need to be for me to take a punch from a Mega Gargant on the charge and then be able to hit back? A lot of stuff only gets bonuses when they are being charged. So this army almost does it. Like, this army's relatively fast. Like, it starts at speed 6. The Dawn Riders can go up to movement 28, but most of the time they get more stuff if they're just sitting still, which is a weird dynamic to be in when you have to generally race for objectives. So you have the ability to almost like always have the option in your army to go first, depending on how your drops go, but you're not really going to move. Like, you can't run or charge while you're in the formation with -1 to hit. And you don't want to charge. Like, if you get charged with Spearmen, they get +1 to wound and +1 rend. If you charge Avalenor, he gets +1 attack on all his weapons. He's hitting it. That's up to 35 damage. 35 damage going out of one monster with possible mortal wound output.
Yeah, but one ugly cow-headed monster,
What? Yeah, Avalon was the named character. I have not played a game yet with the regular spirit. I think they messed up that dynamic a little bit. He probably needs to go down like 40 points, or he needs some sort of change to make him worthwhile. They also play very weird bingo with the buffs. So the his command ability, Avalanor has a command ability where up to D3 Stone Guard units, or the Stone Mage. So there's only up to 2 units in your army. 2 unit types in your army which can benefit from his command ability. Up to D3 of them can gain +1 attack. That cannot stack. You cannot use it again, and it cannot stack with an identical ability on an unnamed cow, who can also do that. So it gives you an area of effect where you can affect more units, but you can never give more than +1 attack to each of your units, which is very strange.
I would just like to point out for the record that I did, in fact, just catch Jack scratching his ear with his paintbrush.
Oh well.
Wait, are you telling me that you've never scratched your ear with your paintbrush? If you say no, I haven't right now, I know you are full of shit. Everybody scratches their ear with their paintbruch, man.
I'm sure I have. Like, he just was looking like he was trying to be all sneaky about it. Like,
no, I think Jack was more perplexed with my deductions.
In there
and Jack is just going to weigh in and say, you know, Marty, you're kind of wrong.
My Warhammer, I just listen to smarter people, and I bring it to the
wet blending. That's what it is. I think, like the what are they called? The Venari Wardens, the Speary guys. Anyway,
just call them, if you want to use old hammer terms. There's spearmen, there's archers, and there's silverhelms. That's all they are. That's all they are.
The thing I like about the spearmen is that once per battle thing, they can pick a unit, or is it a model, within 3 inches of their warden, of their captain, and
he has a hand grenade.
Yeah, and on a 2-up, it's like D3 mortal wounds.
Yeah,
and
there's a hand grenade in the kit, and people think it's a lantern. It's actually a hand grenade. I hate that. I mean, yeah, it's a good ability, but I don't know why he has that other than Games Workshop writes rules for the model kit. And it's
know, but for me, because I'm like not competitive, I'm rule of cool, and I deal with new players all the time. I'm like, you know, that's really cool, and that might make somebody go, oh, I'm going to take a whole bunch of those units, you know, minimum size, so I can get the most amount of grenades, and then just pew pew all over the place. Yeah. I like little stuff like that because it makes a unit that, you know, looks nice, but its rules are like, nah, it's pretty, you know, cut and paste from everything else. And then you see stuff like that, and you're like, oh, hang on, oh, that's cool, because usually, you know, like usually the leader of a unit just does an extra attack, or, you know, hits wounds on a 3 instead of a 4 or something. But that I reckon is really cool.
He has a hand grenade. The lantern and the archer unit allows them to see through walls. The Dawn Riders and Stone Guard don't have one. Stone Guard they got to fix because the unit champion's weapons are objectively mathematically worse than. And they're optional. You don't have to take them. So most of the time, you're never going to see a unit champion with the paired weapons.
Yeah.
They go to 3 attacks, 3s and 4s, no rend damage 1, but you can reroll failed hits. Versus 2 attacks, 3s, rend 1 damage 1, but you're either doing 2 damage or a mortal wound on 6s to hit. So them's the ropes. It's just, it is what it is. But the thing that just it hooks me up is the other thing to know, there are 2 lores in the book, but the main one, which most of your army can use, is excellent, and then the one that effectively, other than Techless, one model in your army has access to is garbage. The Lore of the Mountains is like, I could just read you some of the spells. Like, I think we've either talked about this on Warhammer Weekly or something before, where it's like, or the general artifact debate. How many artifacts do you want? Do you want 80 artifacts and then 12 that are good and the rest are just filling airtime? Or do you want like only 10 good ones which are well tuned?
Not even 10. I want 6 good ones and that's it.
Okay.
But all 6 of them are good, and they're all, you've always, like, if I'm playing you, I know that you have 6 good artifacts and it's going to be one of them, but you never know which one because there's an equal chance of all of them. But
Yeah.
in order to get that, G-Dub would have to, like, I don't know, perform some sort of miracle, because getting 6 good artifacts that are all equally usable in every list for an army, I don't think has ever been done as far as I'm aware.
So I'm just going to read the number 6 spell just quickly, because it's just a good example of the rest of them.
Yeah.
It's called the Salt of Stone. It has a casting value of 8. If successfully cast, pick one enemy unit wholly within 24 inches of the caster and visible to them. Roll a dice number equal to the casting roll, like the roll that you just rolled, and that can have any number of pluses to it. So it's probably going to be a high number. For each roll that is less than that unit's save characteristic, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Rolls of a 1 or a 2 always fail. A save characteristic of dash counts as a 6 for the purposes of this rule.
Do you have to stand on your head drinking a glass of water as well when you throw the dice? Is that in there as well, just to make it a little bit more complicated?
If that helps actually roll enough damage to do something. I don't
As
know.
soon as you did on an 8, I was like, next spell.
Yeah. It's just, well, Total Eclipse is also an 8. And Total Eclipse says you now have to spend 2 CP for all of the command abilities you want to use. I know you don't care, because you're like, I have my War Machine focus ability.
The only time I care about command points is when I'm counting how many of yours I've stolen.
Yeah. It's also fun because Lumineth also don't care about command points. Like Avalanor is the only and the other Avalanor specifically has this ability where if he started the battle round, if Stone Mage has been within 6 inches of him since the past battle round, that Stone Mage can use command abilities without spending a CP. But the Stone Mage has no command point. He doesn't. He's a wizard.
So like that and all out assault and stuff like that.
What?
Just for like at the double and all out assault and things like that.
Yeah. Yes. That's it. He doesn't have his own command abilities. And chapter tactics. The main chapter tactics you're probably going to take him in, which is like CR and I guess CR, where you can make multiple units use Aether Quartz, but like Zytrek doesn't have chapter command ability in their chapter tactics. Symmetrica 1 is bad because it's just you get to use Tectonic Force again, and we all know how fun Tectonic Force is.
I haven't read the book yet.
Okay.
I haven't played against the army yet. So my big point in all of this is that I am going to go through and break down that army book and learn the army and do some videos on the army.
Yeah.
Because Martin, you were curious about my methodology for breaking down an army book and figuring it out.
Yeah. Ryan too. Like I'd like to, because I've always enjoyed his commentary, like on the Bone Reaper stuff. But yes, the more the merrier.
Well, I think you're going to get a very different direction and opinion on how to break down a battle tome from probably all 4 people that are already here. Like the way to break down a battle tome is so different depending on your style, and for me, when I'm showing people a battle tome, and Lumineth is no different. A lot of the time, because I run a club here, a lot of the players are newer players, and they've gone, "Hey, I really like this army, so I've bought it. I've got my little plastic men, and I've got my book, and I'm ready to go. I just don't know what I should take." And the first thing you say is, "Well, read the battle tome, and you'll know stuff, or go online and all that sort of thing." But when it comes to breaking down a battle tome, most of the time that's for a newer player. A more experienced player generally has an idea on exactly where to look and what to do and how to do it. But for newer players, if you want to break down a battle tome, read the lore if you're into lore, but if you just want, to break it down so that you can build a usable list, go through until you find a unit that you like the look of. Read it and go, "Oh, yeah, okay, I like that unit." And then open up a list find out what the points are, and put that unit in there. That's the unit that you want to take. Okay, and then go back and then start trying to find stuff that you're reading in that book until you come across like a hero. Hey, that hero bust that unit that I really liked. Oh, I'll take him. Put him in your list and keep doing that until you've got a list that you like, and it's all based around the models that you like. Because if you don't follow the rule of cool on a new army that you've got, I think you're just going to go, oh, well, I've tried to equal the competitiveness out of this and I haven't actually enjoyed the army. So for a newer player, I think it should just be rule of cool. I think it should be, I really like that unit. Now I'm going to read things in the book and try to make that really awesome and really tough. And that's what I want to play with. And then, when a tournament comes up, then you go into the more experienced breakdowns of a battle tome and how to do that. But for the new players, I'd just like to say, rule of cool, try to have fun with it first, because that's what it's there for mainly.
Yeah.
Above all else, otherwise you won't enjoy your hobby.
Yeah. So Jack, you guys at Rerolling Ones play a lot of different armies.
Yeah.
So many
different armies. So
right back.
How do you guys approach, or you specifically, since you're the guy that's here, screw the other two guys. How do you, you're picking up an army to play a game, to do a battle report, to do a video, right? How do you break down a book to, with the sheer volume of different armies that you guys have, right? You can't internalize all those armies. We're not all like Haywo and Tom, where we can just get every army in our brain and keep the whole thing there and memorize the books, right?
Well, honestly, in the beginning, when we our mission statement was we're going to be the guys who get the rules right, and that just is not going to happen. Even the best players sometimes get rules wrong. And so, initially, we only had a few armies, and we were able to grow and grow and grow. And this year, we've been doing, we started doing the season thing, because we noticed that we're getting stuff wrong. You're trying to play 6 armies, and then you're just going to play them poorly. And so I chose Khorne, Shu chose Skaven, and Brent chose Fire Slayers. And we were I'm a much better Khorne player now that we did that. And I was before, I just viewed Blood Tithe as something I can summon with. But that, it's almost the thing I would least rather do. I'd rather fight in combat. I'd rather move. I'd rather do all these things that I didn't even think about. And so the way I get better is just repetition. I'm lucky enough, this year aside, that I got to go to a lot of tournaments. I got to get a lot of games in. There's a pretty vibrant scene here. And so I was able to, learn from my mistakes, because when you lose, you learn, and, you can, I can do this against Nagash, all right, stay, and you learn about things like, asking people what their maximum threat range is and things like that, things that I think newer players get to go. But for me, learning an army is just repetition, and you have lovely people on the internet who will tell you that when you get something wrong. And so,
yeah,
okay, I'm not going to do that again. I don't like being called an idiot, but it's and it's a living game. You have to also keep up with it, because you can know something for a while, then FAQs come at, and for newer players that can be an issue, because you didn't even know that you have a FAQ out, and your Seraphon Salamanders are now 30 points more when you look at the back of your book. So it is internet's a really useful tool, and I suggest Azir app, because they always update. Eventually they update the FAQs and things like that. So there are a lot of useful tools out there that I think it is a really good time to be a player, besides the global shutdown, but being able to get games, hopefully once all that goes away. But
yeah. And I think AOS Coach in the chat just made a really good point that new players change their lists too much.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You have to just learn what your army does and get
I've played 20 games so far with Lumineth. I think the first 2 with one list, 15 were with the main list I had been playing, and then after the 15 games and like a tournament, like a local tournament. And yes, we've gone back to local tournaments in some capacity here. Safety guidelines and everything being followed. I changed my list after that. I like trimmed some fat, moved some things around. Like it's mostly the same list, but like a little bit more refined. And I've been playing with that one, but I've only gotten 3 games in with that one. So after this weekend, since I've been like in paint or die mode, I'm going to be trying to stick to that at least for right now.
You guys gonna be
Sorry,
a while? I'm gonna go grab some food. Like dinner's almost
Okay.
done. I'll-
Thanks, Jack.
we'll allow it this time, right? All right, just this once though, because we're nice guys.
Uh-huh.
AOS coach mentioned something in the chat about new players changing their lists too often.
We
And it
were
being-
literally just talking about that.
Yeah, I know. So I just wanted to go back to it because I just wanted to second it. I made that mistake when I was a new player as well, and I regretted it afterwards, big time. So second all of that.
Yeah.
For sure. For more experienced players, though, I think like you have to figure out how to slice and dice the battle tome. And the way that I almost think of it is like I kind of like read the thing cover to cover, like the rules section of it cover to cover, and then kind of like go back again. And now like, okay, now I see, I've read all the war scrolls. I've read all of the allegiance abilities. Now let me start reading these allegiance abilities again. And now like, it's almost like hyperlinking to where all of the stuff is pointing. It's like, okay, this ability does this thing. Okay, like which heroes do I have that can take this artifact? And what does that do?
Yeah. You start adding context when thinking about the rules. Like the first time you read them almost in a vacuum. And the second time around, now that you have all of the information of what you just read, you have the added context of thinking about possible synergies or reasons to possibly not take something.
Yeah.
Like a good example.
Yeah, where like having somebody else. So say Martin, you going over Lumineth, you wanted to you wanted to do just that. Having someone like say Tom to talk to, or Paul to talk to, or anybody who can play devil's advocate as well comes in really handy, because you might look at something and go, oh, this is really strong, this is really good, and then having somebody else look at it from a different perspective and say, oh, well, that can be countered by this, and this though, or I'll do this again. So I think it's also good to, if you're more experienced and want to be more competitive, to remember that there's a community out there that you can bounce those things off, and it's in your best interest too as well. Yeah.
Anytime I make a list and I'm like, I really like this list, I immediately send it to somebody else. And I'm like,
yeah, you got some pretty good lists.
Like what am I missing here? Like, what do you think of this list? And it's not like a random person. It's like, it's always somebody that I know knows that army.
Yeah. But see, you've overcomplicated your hobby life, because back in the day, you'd be like, hey, check out this list. What do I need? And the answer was always more handgunners. But no, you had to move away from them. And now it's like so much more.
Yeah. I will say it's I think the only downside there for asking about elves, it's like it's a new army for everybody. I just got to give it time before, like, I think people like definitively understand what it is, because it's like it does a lot. There's a lot of intricate synergies in there in how things interact with each other, and there can be a lot of room for I think the allegiance, the whatever you want to call them, the sub-factions, the great nations, have this ability of providing key buffs to things themed around that nation, like Ymetrica. Like if you want to take a Ymetrica army, before you even think about units, the abilities within Ymetrica really lean towards the Alarith Temple, the Mountain Spirits, the Stone Guard, the Stone Mage. And so if you're thinking about taking a Ymetrica army, I'm sorry, AOS coach is just dropping too many funny lines in the chat. Uh huh. I'm waiting for you to see it.
No, I thought. No.
Okay.
It's true. Like I've stopped playing Cities. It's on my shelf.
Yeah.
I just completely derailing the conversation for a minute. Like I did my video on why I'm disappointed in Cities of Sigmar. That army does not currently play the way I would want it to play.
That's fine. Yeah, I remember you tabled me in our practice game with Du Bois.
Yeah,
because I just didn't know what Cities did, and Cities is like, get out. Well, we also played a scenario where it was just not conducive to Legions of Nagash at all. Where Legions of Nagash have to separate its army. It's like, nope, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah. Well, in that particular game, your trouble was I was playing Hammerhall with the Demigriff battalion, and you let me charge you.
Yes, and I had to split my army into two halves on the two corners, and I'm like, that's Legions of Nagash doesn't want to do that.
Yep.
And but to try and refocus on like the Lumen, like I feel like you almost have to start at the sub factions, like the Great Nations, because those play a very important role in determining how you're going to build your army. To the point where I was running some Lareth Stone Guard, the guys with the cow helmets and the two-handed hammers, and if you don't play them in Ymetrica, it basically becomes like fat in your army that just is very inefficient. Almost all of their buffs that like make them truly magnificent come in their battalion and from the allegiance abilities of Ymetrica itself, where they ignore Ren 2 instead of just Ren 1. The command ability of letting you use Tectonic Force again. If you're taking a lot of Stone Guard, you then take their battalion, which lets them reroll all failed saves. So they just become these unstoppable walls unless you have like a lot of mortal wound output. And so it's like, if you're not taking that, don't take Stone Guard. So it definitely plays a big role, understanding the context of what units can take the most advantage of an abilities in a battle tome. And Lumineth, I think that's like the main thing about them.
Look at this beautiful man joining the stream.
Hello.
G'day.
Yeah. Hey, Anthony.
G'day,
I miss you.
Australia representing.
I miss my Decepticon teammate too.
Mm-hmm.
That's legit. I'm straight up legit. Hey, look, we're actually both the Australians are down under on the screen. How cool is that?
Yes, they are.
That's the second time today I've been called Australian and haven't corrected anybody. I've probably
I know.
New Zealander, and I am in Australia to show them how real men play Warhammer because they didn't know. So I had to come over here for a while.
Yeah.
No comeback from coach. That's right. I understand.
I don't. As an American, I can say this quite firmly that New Zealand is not important enough in the world for me to know how to insult you properly.
Sorry, man, but you lost all credibility the moment you said "as an American."
Geography's not a strong point.
I go about my day trying not to shit talk people, so I don't play that game.
Well, then, it's part of business. If you don't shit talk each other, you're just not going to get anywhere in Australia.
I know. I mean, if you ask Pagano, that's the same thing that we do over here. But I think New Jersey has a better record of playing Warhammer than New York City right now. So I'll leave it at that.
Does New York City even have Warhammer players?
Yeah, isn't there only like 8 people left in New York? Haven't they all moved out somewhere else now?
Yeah, how is there not a GT in New York?
Is there not?
Yeah.
No,
Jan does one. I know this just became a completely different conversation. Jan Papian has the one at his warehouse in Westchester County. That's the Kraken Studios one.
City, though. It's in Westchester. That's not
You
New
just
York.
you said New York. The Manhattan guys play on Thursdays in a concrete box beneath a comic book shop, which has been there since like the 70s. And then everyone comes to my events, which I used to run in Brooklyn. Did you go to the last one before the lockdown where we had 18 people? We took over the store. Like
No, I did not come
we
to
kicked
that.
we kicked the D&D people out. We kicked out a Mordheim league.
Oh, that's
Like,
rough.
Wow.
We even had visiting Englishmen. Yeah, they were on vacation on holiday, and we had one of the guys from Tungsgate Tyrants, which is one of the big clubs in south of London, and he was there with some flesh eater courts. We had North Jersey, South Jersey, Philadelphia, Manhattan, Long Island, and England represented in that event, and it was a great time.
Did you hear that, Coach? You won't shit talk people, but man, Americans will kick other people out of stores so they can play Warhammer, and we're the bad guys down here.
It's only Mordheim. It's a cursed game.
And D&D, man.
Yeah, D&D, it couldn't be helped. Sorry.
Whatever.
They
They
played.
play in a cardboard box on the sidewalk.
So, Coach, help Paul out a little bit here. How should he, or how does he break down a battle tome?
Yeah, look, I've been working my armies on Braid display board, making a whole bunch of noise while I've been listening to you guys. And you've all raised some really valid points. I think if I put on my competitive lens, and I'm thinking about how do I break down a battle tome, the first thing I really want to start looking at is some of the natural synergies that already exist in a battle tome. And I'm talking purely things like your battle line with a lead choice. Things that are natural, right? And then what you're trying to do is supercharge that through artifacts, allegiance abilities, battalions, other combinations. And obviously I'm looking at it very competitively, right? Because I also agree on rule of cool. Pick what you want, build around it, have fun with your models. You're spending lots of money and time on the things you enjoy. If I wanted to make the most of a battle tome, I would look at some of the natural synergies, whether it's the Wardens and Sentinels, and then I go, right, what can make the most of my Wardens and Sentinels? And is it more of them? Is it a combination of them? Is it a small unit or a large unit? And what do I get for the trade-off? Are there heroes that make them even better? And then once I start thinking about those things, I then start thinking about the meta. I start thinking about, well, what are my likely opponents, and how would these go against those opponents? Whether it's Kharadron Overlords, Seraphon, whether it is maybe my local meta is a destruction-based meta. So what is a really strong internet right now? Internet list may not actually work for me. Maybe it's Einsteins and Beastclaw Raiders that charge me turn one, and the list that I'm looking at is a 2-drop or a 4-drop. So I think thinking about things like local, state, national metas, obviously that it's not like a step 1, step 2, step 3, but these are all the different things that you get used to kind of formulate a good list. And I think, as you guys have all mentioned as well, and I raised earlier, it's also tested a few times, tested 5, 6, 7 times. Try to isolate the issue if something's not working, and make one change, test that, and then test that one change. I think I see a lot of people do wholesale changes where they gut the whole list, when actually then you don't learn. It's A/B testing. It's what happens if I have more Wardens and Sentinels? What happens if I put in Dawn Riders instead of another block of Sentinels? What happens? How does it go? If I have Techless, if I pull out Techless, what does it do to the list? And people like Joe Hayward Twitch in the chat, he's someone who has run Beastclaw Raiders for many years, and he's played it up against the strengths of the awesome armies, but he's also played it when they're shit. So it's finding what your army can do, and understanding what situations you can also put your army in. There's a lot of, obviously that comes with Paul, we spoke about this on my channel around variability and expectations around Mathhammer and what we expect things to do. Through experience, you kind of get a good understanding of, is it better to go first? Is it better to keep away first? How well can I handle a charge? How well do I pull off a charge? Like all those little scenarios, and that's where Age of Sigmar comes into play. You are making micro decisions, and one micro decision can change the outcome of a game, both positively and negatively.
So with that though, I'm guessing like most people might already know this, but that requires a bit of patience to do all of that as well. Because what Coach is saying about make one change, if something's not working, make one change and then play again and 5, 6, 7 games. Is you've got to have the patience. Don't just go screw it. The list is shit. Move on to the next one, because it may just be those small changes that make all the difference, right? And you would know. I mean, you've seen more lists than probably I've had hot dinners. So
the other thing that I don't think new players or players in general do enough of is they don't ask for feedback. If you play a game, both you win or lose, take the moment at the end of the game to be humble and say, "Hey, Paul, is there anything I could have done differently, or do you think there was a mistake that I shouldn't do again?" And if you're at a tournament, the awesome thing is you get to put that into practice immediately. So if someone says, "Look, man, I wouldn't have deployed on 12-inch, I would have dropped back 6 because I could have turned one charge. You didn't ask about threat ranges, and maybe next time ask about threat ranges." They're like, "Oh yeah, no, that's a good idea. Thank you very much." And I implement that immediately, and I can see the results immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like that post-game conversation with your opponent, and let's be honest, like most of the time, our games are with our friends, so we can just have that honest post-game conversation about like how did this go? How did this play? How did that feel for you? How did that? Do you think that performed? Was that overperforming, underperforming? Did your list do what you think it was going to do? And you kind of bounce those things off of each other, because when you're, friends in a gaming club or, however your gaming situation is organized, we'll just call them clubs. Although where I am, we don't have clubs. We have stores we go play at. But like you have that level of like personal rapport where you can just have the conversation, even mid-game. Like I have, mid-game gone like, I made a really stupid move last turn. And my opponent's like, "Yeah, you did, dude. I don't know why you did that." Or even if you're in just calling your opponent on like, are you sure you want to do that? Right? Like, yeah. Is that the play you want to make? Is that actually going to like why are you doing
that? To answer a quick question in chat, I'm in another room. I did one of the Warhammer Weekly shows in a kitchen of my parents' house, and there was a creepy painting behind me where it was just like looking down at me. Does everyone remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's in the other room. Sorry.
So how do you if you're playing against someone, what are the telltale signs that tell you that person has broken down their battle tome and they know what they're doing, they know their tome? What are the telltale signs of somebody who knows their shit?
My number one sign is the person has their book closed sitting next to them and they're just doing stuff. Like, that is somebody that is prepared, or they're just wildly cheating.
But or they print off AOS reminders and don't need the book. But yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, like if
I got to that point with
whatever, your source material is closed. It's away. Like when I'm playing Nurgle, the only time I crack open my battle tome is if like my Great Unclean One got into combat and is wounded, and I have to look at the wound chart to figure out what its attacks are now. Like,
Yeah.
like that's about all I crack open a book for when I'm playing Nurgle.
I did get to a point with Stormcast where I didn't have to open the book anymore. But yeah, with Lumineth, it's sometimes like I was almost like at the beginning, like this could be with any new army. Like with Legions of Nagash is probably a better example, because when I switched from Stormcast to Legions of Nagash last autumn as like an army project, and I was painting that to bring to Du Bois last year, and going from Stormcast, which was the only army I played for 2 years, to not only a non-order army, but my first ever undead army. And it had all of these tools, which were...
That's a good switch, brother. That was
Yeah.
the best switch you've ever made in your life, was going from Stormcast to Legions.
Yeah.
Fuck, best army ever.
Yeah, and I was just like I was just like, oh, I've always played against it. Like, I generally know when I'm doing my threat analysis what the Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon does. I generally know what Archon the Black does, and all of the plethora of Night Haunt that you often see in Legions of Nagash armies, because Night Haunt units are one of the starter set units. A lot of new players, especially like if they got the starter set, if they're not playing Stormcast, they're probably playing Night Haunt. And so it's like I generally knew what all of these did, but like just getting into like, well, now I have to keep an eye on where I place my grave sites. I have to keep an eye on like just remembering the ranges, because there's a very specific thing where it's like if you want to bring a unit back, you have to do it within, I believe it was, and I'm still recalling now because I didn't play enough games with it. It's within 12 inches of your general, and 9 inches of a grave site, and 9 inches away from all enemies. Holy, yeah.
Inches of right.
Yeah. So, and to answer your question, 100% fewer custom bricks. I believe I did put some on Archon's base.
And Legions of Nagash is the only army I've played that I can play without the book. Like,
Yeah.
Ossiarch can't do it. Stormcast couldn't do it. Nurgle couldn't do it. But after a while, yeah, you're right. You just get so used to, not only that, but once you found that list that is competitive and fits all the requirements that you personally have for a list, you sort of get used to it. You know the spells, you know what their cast values are, you know all those things, and yeah, that's a really good telltale sign. I hadn't actually thought of that though until you pointed it out. That that is a pretty good telltale sign.
Ryan, like to just add on to that, did you ever play a new Legions of Nagash player? How did you encourage them to keep looking through their book instead of just telling them the answer when they had a question where it's like, how many attacks do each of the Blood Knights have? Instead of you just saying like just saying the answer, you know what I mean? It might be.
It's a matter of like there's the first one is, oh, I can't remember, check, and then and then when they go through their book and they go, oh, 4, you go, oh yeah, that's right, 4. That's the most subtle way of doing it.
Right.
The other is, dude, you're gonna have to check, man. You need to know your army. You can't be doing this because you just spent 25 fucking minutes going through which spell laws you're gonna use. Like, you need to get faster. So there's like a range of where you can, but I think the most important thing is saying, hey, make sure that let it go and help them out, but make sure at the end of it, when you provide that feedback that Coach mentioned earlier, that you say, hey, it's going to be real beneficial to you and to your opponent if you know these off by heart. So if you get used to them, because games in a tournament usually come with a time limit, and you can really hurt yourself if you don't make proper use of your time. So I think that is feedback for after the game. And usually you only need to give feedback like that once.
Right.
The other way is to just say straight up, if you make a mistake, you could suffer for it. If you forget that they hit on a 3 now instead of a 4, then you could miss out on some free wounds there. So make sure you know what you're looking at.
Yeah. And I think another telltale sign where like of someone where it's like they have when you're going through that pre-game discussion of like asking the right questions of like what your army does, and like not like their strategy, but like going through their army list if there's generally an understanding of my army does this, the battalion I purchased does this, I'm an X drop. There's almost a different vocabulary that they use compared to someone who's newer, and saying like, because someone who's newer might just bypass the full the robust explanation of what their army does, and go towards their intent where it's like, I'm just here to have fun, or I'm relatively new. I think I picked it for these reasons, whereas someone who's like, I came to play. All right, it's like I brought 6 storm vermin, storm fiends, 2 poison wind mortars, 2. I forget the other ones. The Skaven is the bane of my existence. Just with what
stuff that do the bits and they go all over the place. Yeah, those guys.
Yeah. I see your deep if you're still bringing up poison wind mortars.
Yeah.
But the benefit of that as well is there's another benefit to that you can tell them as well, and that is that most tournaments will have a best sports award. And a lot of the time, somebody who does things like go, hey, this is my army, this is what it does, this is where it does it, and you break it down for your opponent. Your opponent walks away going, oh, that guy was really fair, he was really nice, he explained everything to me, I didn't have to question anything, it was great. Oh yeah, +1 for fucking, best sports. And then at clubs that have tournaments like ours, like our best sports award is equal to in value as first place award, because we want to show that we care more about having a good time than winning. So that sort of thing, yeah, you can get just by knowing your army better, you can actually gain stuff as well. So
yeah,
that's an interesting thing just to point out as an aside, real quick, that I think more events need to take into account is like having equal weight between like best general, best sports, best painted. Like there are 3 like aspects of the hobby, and then like a best overall.
Yeah.
Like I personally, when I run an event or I'm helping run an event, helping design an event, I'm always like, we have to have equal prizes for all the different categories, because everybody that comes here is here for a different reason. Yeah. And just because somebody's coming here as a painter more than a player doesn't mean they deserve less of a prize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Is that microphone better now?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it must have been my Bluetooth
popping.
headset. It's raining at the moment. It's
it's
raining at the moment, so maybe the Bluetooth was playing up. So probably the biggest thing as well. Probably the other thing as well is the types of questions you ask your opponent at a tournament, and the biggest one for me that gets lacking is what is your threat range? That single question changes the game entirely. So it's not important to understand how long a unit can shoot. It doesn't matter how much it can move, but what is the threat potential? And that is both the movement and the shooting characteristic. That could be the run and charge abilities. That can be the coming from the sky or teleporting and only needing to be within 3 inches of the unit. That changes the way you look at your deployment, maybe the decision, maybe who goes first, if you screen or bubble wrap or protect some of your heroes. And it's those micro decisions that I notice in deployment that can often determine the outcome before a dice is even rolled. So that's another thing as well. It's you ask good questions and you get good answers.
I see Ryan's got one of his kiddos hanging out with him now.
Yeah, I'm going to have to head off because my little nurgling just woke up. And we've got a date with a bowl of yogurt. So
fabulous.
I'm going to drop.
Yeah.
I will be.
He might touch his beard as well. So
again shortly. Wow. 1 moment. Sorry. Just my paint is on the other side of the room from where I am camping out right now. So I have to, while I'm working on this hobby stuff.
Paul, I'm going to give you an exclusive. So this is what I'm currently working on my Armies on Parade board. So You can't see a lot of what's going on. You can see a House of Rohan, but it's been cut up a little bit. Any keen White Dwarf subscribers may recognize the burnt Rohan building from January's issue this year. But I am currently building my Armies on Parade board while trying to paint a Gargan army at the same time. Oh, and I've got a tournament next month that I'm trying to do all this for.
Yeah.
So
Holy crap.
you're in on the Gargants.
Well, that's just to compete with you a bit there, Coach. I've got this fairy and this fairy and this fairy with a broken wing and this fairy here with a broken wing because my daughter breaks all of her fairies and my hobby time is now taken up with super gluing wings back on little freaking fairies. Don't have kids, buy more Warhammer. That's my advice to any young gamers out there.
There's some real life knowledge right there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Have a good one, Ryan. Nice talking to you.
Ryan.
Yeah. I have been doing the my mother calls it the paint or die mode, where since last weekend I have been painting the last of my first 1,000 points of Lumineth. I am painting them for a 1,000 point event at a store in still technically South Jersey. Some would call it Central Jersey, even though that arguably doesn't exist. For like a mini sort of tournament. I don't know how many people will be there, but I expect I may be one of the more advanced players there. So I'd like to do my best to be in a position to like teach people as best I can about the game. So that requires me to be fully painted. And it takes me a while to paint these elves because these elves are special to me as giants are special to Anthony. And so I've just been going back and forth. I'm painting all of the bases separately. And then hopefully after the broadcast before bed, I will be gluing all of my figures onto those bases. They've been stuck on wine corks for the past 2.5 weeks, including my one wizard. Did everyone see that I painted the runes on his jacket on both sides?
I like that.
Which took like an hour and a half. That was not easy. So yeah, I will be in a position to play in an event again, and a new army is always tough. Trying to get your head around it. A new army is even tougher when it's a new army for everyone, not just you.
Yeah.
So I just try and see how I can universally improve at Warhammer. I wouldn't say I'm bad at the game. I am certainly inconsistent. Before the stream, we talked about how I went to an event in North Jersey in late 2018, and I took a very left field Stormcast army and got 5th place, and that was at an event without soft scores. The scores were tallied separately for paint, sports, and everything. It was just basically its own unrelated contest. And then I took basically the same list, maybe a little more fine-tuned. I trimmed the fat from it a little bit to an event near and dear to Paul and I's hearts, which was, did you go to Du Bois in 2018, or was last year your first Du Bois, Paul?
No, I've been to 3 now.
Okay, so you were there last 2018?
Yeah.
Well,
I brought Nurgle to that one.
Yeah, big surprise. And I did not do well at that event. And then I talked to Tom and was like, well, what's the best Stormcast list I could bring? And I took basically that, and I've been playing Stormcast for 2 years, so I was used to basically every build that exists out there for Stormcast. And Stormcast were already on their downward trend, but Adepticon at the beginning of 2019 was just a disaster, I think. And I should have only won 1 game, but I won 2 games. And I have not really won more than 2 games at an event, a 2-day event since then, despite how much I play. So it's just what am I doing differently? And I considered I tried the Undead as a reset button, but of course I admit that I jumped on Legions of Nagash at the worst time. They let people play with the better Archon. That did not help. because that was the week that Bone Reapers came out, and it was terrible. Like everybody by then knew how to kill the ethereal zombie dragon. Archon was just it's mostly like kill Archon, mortal wound hose the zombie dragon, and everything else after that just falls apart. And then after that was basically the tournament cycle that should have been, but pandemic. So, but who knows what could have happened at my future events after that. But now we're here, and we got kind of the army of my dreams. Sorry, Tom, it was not what you wanted, because I know there's a swath of people that were hoping for something a little different. But I'm using this as my opportunity to try and reset and play Warhammer better than I have been. And conversations like this have been especially helpful in trying to understand, just like universally, how to break down an army book, how to try and maximize the efficiency out of the units you want and the synergies you might have available to you when you come to a game.
I think the other thing to consider is the local meta, and I know, so for example, Dan from AOS Shorts, for example, had an article out the other day on Warhammer Community, and it shows you, and you know, while the data sample size is quite low, as tournaments are quite, you know, minimal, it does kind of give you a good understanding. And my video series that I kind of suspended during COVID around emerging meta was that exact same kind of premise. It was what is popular? What if I was to attend an event? What is the likelihood that I will be matched up to one of these armies? And you can see the Kharadron Overlords, the Seraphons of the world right now are certainly very strong. Change Host, an example for Zench, and it's also asking yourself the question: what would I do in this situation? Now, not every army can win every game. I truly do feel that we're in a bit of a scissor, paper, rock kind of meta at the moment where there is no pure dominant army. I think everyone has a weakness. But it's understanding what have I got? What would I do? And is there something that I can do to change the outcome? And a simple thing might be, for example, if you've got a unit who maybe for example, has a pre-game move, that can be really helpful. For example, for anyone who gets turn 1 and wants to alpha strike you, you can kind of push that unit forward and make it a little bit harder for Kharadron Overlords, for example, to get in range of your juicy stuff. And some of those games you might go, look, if I play against a change host, I just can't beat the change host. I'm okay with that. But what else can I do if someone turn 1 charges me, you know, Ironjaw's Beastclaw Raiders? What happens if I was to face the OBR catapults? What would I do in this situation? How would my army function if that catapult did take out my barefoot little hero standing on a rock? Like, what would I do, for example, if I was given turn 1? How much offensive or defensive magic do I have? And there's a lot of hypothesis that goes into Age of Sigmar, and obviously the more games that you play, the less hypothesis you need to make. Yeah. But it's just an understanding of where am I good? Is it, do I have the tools to compete in the scenarios? Am I better off putting? And this is kind of why I think Wardens and Sentinel build in Lumineth is really good, because there's a lot of bonus victory point scenarios going around at the moment. If you take Battle Line or Hero or Monster, so do I have those tools available to me? And do I take Dawn Riders who aren't Battle Line hypothetically, or do I take more Battle Line? And pros and cons. Don't at me if they are Battle Line. It's an example.
Right. Well, there's actually an interesting dynamic you can think about there. For every Spearman unit you can take, you unlock the option to take either a Sentinel or a Dawn Rider unit as Battle Line.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, yeah. So instead of going the Stone Guard, you might want to go that way. And if you don't have access to it, then is there someone who can? I know for me as a Cities player, the Canary, for example, are very attractive. Or this new warband that they're showing off, this K-Knight warband that's coming, the Shadow Stalkers. Cities ally with Daughters this looks like a daughter's unit, so this might be a unit that I might want to bring in cities. And like a lot of people have been asking me lately, should I take a Gargant? Should I bring in a Gargant? And my response back at the moment is what's the role it's trying to fill? Do you have that role already available to you? And I think these are some of the hypothesis you need to start thinking about or exploring in your list design and your experience. So, for example, on Monday, I've got a game happening, and I'm going to try out the three mega Gargant list. Even though I know two mega Gargants and 6 smalls are probably better, I just want to test the 3. I want to see what it's like, what happens, what is it good at, what isn't it good at, and then my next games I'm going to try a different tribe. I'll try some things just to kind of get a feel, and then I might fully commit.
Yeah. What I was thinking about, and say the list I'm thinking about right now, and again, I've only played 3 games with it, even though I have like the 15 with where it's like mostly formed, where it's Venari and then the only hammer unit, because the only real hammer unit in the army is Avalanor, which is the Cow Lord with the 2 hammers. You have the Venari Battalion, which is an equal amount of spearmen and archers, and then the Cathalar in there, which lowers your drops and gives you a second artifact. So you have 2 units of spearmen, 2 units of archers, and then 2 units of Dawn Riders. And now the way that works is that you always have to pick. It technically leaves you with an odd number of battle line units like to choose from. You don't have to choose the spearmen. The archers can be battle line. You actually get to pick and choose what fulfills that role. So you can have the option of making some of the cavalry battle line or making the archers not, because with all of those options of what counts as bonuses for scoring, you're never sure when you're going to be forced to actually have to move up the field. So a lot of the scenarios now, like with Forcing the Hand and Blade's Edge, you're forced to be a little more proactive than you might want to be, especially with an army that wants to kind of sit still with some of it and take charge with the other parts of it. And we were talking in my local chat about, after Vince's Gargant episode, what that matchup might look like with the armies in our play group. And Giants are like, well, Giants are going to get to sorry, the chat. There we go. Giants will get to objectives first. Elves are probably not going to be as fast, and you have to shift those giants, or elves are just going to lose on points. And that's usually how elves lose. They might not lose all of their units, but they are definitely going to lose on points.
Another question I've got for you then, Martin, and like I was just looking at the chat with Reflex as well, and Reflex Dog, makes some really good points that in his local meta, there's a very strong Sylvaneth player. If you ask the internet, people would tell you Sylvaneth's hot garbage. They're not doing well. They didn't even feature on Dan AOS Short's little image.
Yeah, leaderboard.
So people wouldn't think about Sylvaneth, but in your local meta, if that's where you play, then they ask you different questions, so your list will be a little bit different. But if you think about the new Mega Gargant that the Taker, the Kraken Eater, allows you to move in an objective, what happens if I kick that behind? If I push that away, what can you do? Do you have a teleport? Do you have the speed? Do you stay in combat? And I think this is also kind of goes back to the retreat piece, that people just get so bloodlust fixed at combat that the better decision was to retreat and run away and go for the objective, go for the squishy hero. But a lot of interesting questions are about to be asked, and I think it's a real shame that COVID happened when it happened, because Seraphon had just been FAQ'd, and we haven't seen the true potential of Seraphon. We've seen it on Tabletop Simulator, but we haven't actually seen if salamanders are really as bad as they are. And obviously I know that they do real damage, but do people actually take salamanders? Are they going to buy salamanders? Or is it more a skink croak kind of builds? And
Or do you go? What's it? A friend in the local chat with Seraphon is like people are overlooking the Old Blood on Carnosaur, where it's like the damage that thing can do for its point cost has been like almost entirely overlooked. I don't really know about that. He would have to be here to try and explain his logic behind that.
No one's talking
Yeah.
about the. So everyone's talking about the Starborn Seraphon. No
Yeah.
one's talking about Coalesce, which is very combat orientated. Take the your Bastillodons and some Stegodons and some cool monsters, and
Yeah.
the bite attacks become really powerful for the Jaws. But everyone's talking about Lord Croak. You've got the Aslith Bearer. You've got some Skinks. You've got it's net listing at the moment. So I think kind of coming back, and I might have to drop off in a minute. If I'm looking to improve, I'm thinking about what I'm taking and what's my outcome. What do I want from an event, and work backwards. So if I want to get a 3-2 average or a 4-1 average, or I want to win my next tournament, I need to kind of then work backwards to say, well, what do I need to do to make that happen? And that might be leveraging the Facebook groups or the WhatsApp groups and list teching with your friends, your peers. It could be finding and getting experience against those top armies. There's been plenty of times where I've played people in my local scene, very competitive, successful players, where we will re-rack our deployments. We'll sit there for 3 hours and we'll just deploy for literally 3 hours. We'll play our first round out, then re-rack, just so we get our deployments really schmick and we make our first moves, pretty awesome. Go hunt down those KOs, Seraphon, Lord of Change host. Go actively find that change host and see what you can do and learn from it, so that when you get to the tournament, this is not your first experience. You've got 5 games of change host under your belt and you can make a better decision.
Yeah. I will continue to play. Like, I'm definitely excited about the army. I don't really have any, there's nothing in the book that like is making me feel so bad about it that I'm just not going to continue to play it. I might dislike that there are minimal hero choices, but that will probably improve over time as the roster increases, as all of these armies are what to do as they are supported by Games Workshop. I think the main I hesitate to say it's an issue because I really don't mind that much, is that our local club plays armies that are probably on the lower end of the fat middle, like your Khorne, Night Haunt, Chaos Dwarves.
So you need real experience. You need
I need to play against armies that are going to challenge me, and I only get those when I go to a tournament. And I've only been to one tournament with Lumineth so far, and
So you need to think outside your box. You need to either start playing TTS, you need to start finding new gaming communities, you need to think outside the box so you can find those players. Otherwise, you'll never get the experience because those big events aren't happening. So what is in your control? And maybe TTS is a great example where it does give you some exposure to some of the bigger armies or the more
better
powerful
players.
armies.
Like, I would probably never get the opportunity to play certain people in Australia or New Zealand or England.
Well, we saw only literally, I think it was this week or last week, Chris Welfare, who is a top level Australian player, played Darren Watson, a top level English player on TTS. So you could absolutely do that, or you could find some coaching opportunities for someone who is playing Lumineth and saying, hey, can I have half an hour of your time? Let's go on TTS. Show me how you deploy your army. Walk me through and give me some advice. Some things to think about, but I've got to drop off. I've got to cook, make some lunch, and do some things and make some noise. I think that's the big thing. I need to make some noise.
Thank you for your time, Anthony.
No, man, it was a good chat. Hopefully, you kind of tag. This is the second random chat. Yesterday, I was on Mr. Fisto's random chat. This is now Paul Conti's random chat.
And speaking of random, we're gonna tag you out for Mr. Hooves of Doom.
Boom. This is literally the tag. So I'll wait for him to come. Hooves, got to tag me in, brother. Tag, got to tag. is the worst tag team in history.
Can you hear us?
Who's
All right, I'm
muted?
tagging out. All right, see you, folks.
All
See
right.
ya.
Bye.
We
Folks,
can't
muted.
hear you. Muted. Still muted.
Hey,
There we go.
Welcome to the party, man.
what? Still
What?
muted?
No, you
Yep.
got it. You're good.
Got you now.
All right.
Welcome to the party.
Hey, thanks.
So you have just moved into our neighborhood. Because you're in Maine now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Martin is in New Jersey. I'm in Connecticut. So we got
Yes. We have the Northeast piece.
little, yeah.
So what you've been working on, Hooves?
The you said
Kinda
the audio and stuff.
Oh, okay.
weird
so Paul-
feedback loop here. I'm trying to figure out here.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, all right, Paul. What do you think of the past few? We now have the philosophies of the Bone Reaper's man himself and the Gargant in chief. So, all right, Paul. What do you think of the past few? We now have the philosophies of the Bone Reaper's man himself and the Gargant in chief. All right, Paul.
Yeah,
What do you
some
think
echo.
of yeah. We now have the philosophies of. All right then.
You know, I fixed it.
Yeah.
So, what do you mean in terms of like?
So like,
My
do you have
approach?
anything to add? Yeah, your approach.
I am an extremely analytical person, so I will preface it with that.
Yeah.
I take everything to a very analytical place. I want to look at my army at a depth where I set expectations in my head of what a unit's going to do. Right? That's why I do all the math hammer that I do.
Yeah.
And when you set those expectations of what a unit can do, from doing the math, from, analyzing the war scrolls and synergies and combos that you can pull out from the battle tome, then you can start really building lists. I think, there's a lot of different approaches that you can take, but I think the commonality between all of them is you've got to really know your book, and not just read your book, not reference the war scrolls. Like, you have to really know what's going on. I still go back to books and read through all the war scrolls, and occasionally I will happen upon something and I'll be like, holy shit, I've been playing that wrong for 6 months.
Well, that won't take you very long with Lumineth. Like, if there's an upside to choosing Lumineth over the armies you have a history of enjoying, Lumineth is it's 4 units, I believe 5 heroes, 3 battalions. There's only one. There's only 2 models that are heroes that are not named characters. Like, I'm interested to see the Underworld's War Scroll, but I'm just splitting hairs here. It's like it's very easy read. Like, you can do a lot of different combinations and playing around with, well, what happens if I make some of these units battle line instead of these units battle line in my army? What happens if I take the same exact list, but instead of CR, put it in Zytrek? What happens? And it turns out it changes the how it plays almost completely. Do I want to choose the Eumetric and Stoneguard Phalanx? Do I want to do the Dawn Rider Lance, where I'm doing 25 cavalry? And you might run into... I don't know if there is a matchup where just playing around with those builds constantly leads to something where it's like I just can't win that game. Maybe that's just me thinking maybe a little naive. I'm not sure, but it's definitely. Byron said the other night on Warhammer Weekly, one of the best ways to enjoy playing Warhammer is just thinking about lists, building lists when you're bored. Just
Yep.
I've never really been able to come up with something good, but there's people like you or Tom or Byron where it's like 40 different lists. What happens if I do this? What happens if I want to build this? Lumineth might yield a little closer to that, and they can ally with Deepkin, which even opens up more. Like, what happens instead of taking Dawn Riders, I take Eels. Like, then I have
take both.
Yeah, I suddenly have access to something that can fly. The only there are 2 models in the book that can fly, Teclis and the Stone Mage, but the Stone Mage has to turn it on, so you don't really have flying. You have no healing. So it's definitely a weird set of dynamics that lend themselves to being like truly unlike any other army in the game. But they have no hammer unit. Like funny that there's a unit with wielding hammers, but they don't really do mathematically. I'd like to see the damage output, like at a PowerPoint like Vince does, where you compare Spearmen to Stone Guard in terms of the amount of output they get. Granted, there are other factors about why you take Stone Guard or Spearmen or both, but that's mostly on their defensive capabilities. The offense, they don't really have too many differences. So it lends itself to making choices you probably wouldn't think about in other armies.
Yeah. One of the things that I've started thinking about as well is thinking about it from the game designer's perspective. One of the things that they have talked about is designing into each book having at least 3 different play styles in that book. So they're designing into like usually 3 different tracks.
Mm-hmm. And what other tracks?
You probably want to go with those tracks.
No, what do you mean 3 different tracks? Like I was asking, do you like, or did you just pick a number? I'm sorry.
No, they specifically said they want 3 ways to play in each book.
Okay, thanks.
And
sorry, I was getting hooked up on that.
So sometimes it's going to be different than that. I mean, I think like Slaves to Darkness, I think is in like a totally different category with that. Because I think all 4 of their hosts are like completely different armies.
Okay.
But I think 3 is not a hard number, but I think it's at least 3.
Okay.
So you want to look at like what channels were they designing into the book? Like where are right? Like picture like the rules of in the book like a train on tracks.
Yes.
Where are those tracks taking you?
Okay.
Because they designed them a certain way to work a certain way.
Right.
And it's occasionally you're going to get a book where, you know, players just figure something out that is out of left field, some combination of things that the designers missed. But most of the time, you're going to have something that was clearly designed into the book. The synergies were created on purpose. They were, they were tuned to be a certain way, and and sometimes those different ways to play a book are also this is the more narrative way to play it. This is the more match play way to play it. It's not all necessarily like having like a different play style and all of these different things are going to be good.
Yeah. So if I could summarize that, then maybe there's the way I'm playing right now is like adaptability, like mainly just like trying to be the toolbox with like the Venari, because you have these units which work with each other so well. You have the archers who can shoot mortal wounds in a way more indicative of a scalpel than perhaps the volley fire that people expect. They don't need line of sight to shoot. They're good at hunting characters. You have spearmen who are good at providing your bodies, and they have mortal wound output. So doesn't matter how much they are debuffed or how little they can actually do wounds. They always have the ability to put out mortal wounds within their spear wall, and they get better if they're charged rather than taking the fight to the enemy. And then you have your Dawn Riders, which are your scalpel in terms of they only get more attacks if they're fighting stuff that's smaller than they are. Like you get +2 attacks for both the lances and the horses if they're fighting 1-wound models, and they get +1 attack if they're fighting 2-wound models. But not every army in the game is going to have that, which is why when I saw the 25 model Dawn Rider list, which is 2 units of 10 and a unit of 5 cavalry, if you're fighting against pigs, like did you ever play Scooter? You know what I'm talking about when Scooter Walters? Scooter
I have not played against him, but I know.
Okay. With the classic Gorefist, he has the question army of I have Gordrak, some War Chanters, and a bunch of pigs. I'm going to charge them down your throat turn 0. What are you going to do about it? If you can kill it, I lose. If you can't do anything about it, you're in for a bad time at 90 miles an hour, my friend.
So let me maybe interrupt your train of thought a little bit here for a second.
Yeah.
For a simple question.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to think of, in the Lumineth book, what 3 styles of play the designers built into that book, what would they be?
Tanking, like just taking hits and just like slowly put like the Stone Guard. So you have the Geometrica thing where you have the cows taking hits and then pushing people back, like slowly gaining board control through tectonic force of pushing people, taking hits, and then dealing them back with the characters, and just like overall, I think that there's a death by 1,000 cuts army, which is like the Venari thing where you have your adaptability, but like doing the mortal wounds, like doing an aggregate amount of defeating your opponent by doing a relatively similar amount of wounds or mortal wounds every turn. And then you have sort of like your magical supremacy, which is techless and any number of combination of units supporting him, keeping him alive, and you win through whatever techless can help you do. And I think that is probably it. I can't think of a 4th build, which is like, I don't know if I want to call the Dawn Rider build different in terms of play style. That still feels like a bit of a jack of all trades, sort of death by 1,000 cuts army. Because the Dawn Riders, even though they're going to go very fast and they can change where they are on the table basically every turn, they're not doing damage in a way that's different from the archers and the spearmen, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, your magical supremacy, death by 1,000 cuts, and tanking and pushing. Those are the 3 styles.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I guess the question is, or my comment would be, the book is designed that way.
Yeah.
Don't fight it.
Yes.
And figure out which of those play styles you like best or you think is best, and run with it and try and pull all the synergies you can into it.
Okay. Yeah, because that's a good way of identifying fat. Because it's like, well, if a part of my army is not working towards that goal, you better have a good reason why it's in the army. Like,
yeah. I mean, and sometimes that reason is hold objectives.
Yes.
Like, let's be honest. Like, sometimes it's just, I need to hold objectives. I need more bodies on the board.
Right. Yeah, but there's a good reason why you won't see Stone Guard in a Zytrek army. Like, they don't. Yeah, those 2 things do not go together. Stone Guard are basically built to play exclusively in Geometrica, the sub-faction. I cannot see them being used in an army outside of that. And that was probably my mistake for the first few games, because I took them because Avalinor's command ability only affects Stone Guard and the Stone Mage. If you don't have Stone Guard in your list, his command ability basically affects one model, the Stone Mage, and you need the Stone Mage kind of to keep Avalinor at his full potential. So it's like, well, I don't want part of his War Scroll to go to waste. I better put this unit in the army. And it turned out to be kind of an inefficient choice. Not a bad idea, an inefficient choice. So if you want to maximize efficiency a little more, it's probably better to take more Venari in a Venari supporting subfaction than the Stone Guard. And that was 200 points for 10 models. That's already, you buy 5 cav, buy extra point. That's extra points to put back into another unit. It's an easy swap of taking them out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So have you figured out your audio issues yet?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time since I've been on a stream, and so there's a kind of a noob moment there where I had the extra window open. Yeah. It's terrible, but I figured it out. Yeah, and I moved back to Maine, and so I'm only about 3 hours away from you, Paul. I'm gonna have to head down, or you come up here.
Yeah, and I'm only 2.5 hours south of you, so no, south of Paul. So it's like
All right.
No.
That's not so bad either. Yeah, I figure I might be able to get to some of those tournaments and things like that in the
I think
Northeast.
the really good one to get
When they're
to
up and running
is
again.
Du Bois. That's in Rochester, New York. You can basically just go down to the Mass Pike and just take 90 straight west until you hit Rochester, and you're there.
Yep.
And it's like 3 turns off the highway.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds good.
I'm painting all of this with the idea that Du Bois next year will happen. If it doesn't, that will be unfortunate, but I'm planning for as if it will. So I'm painting my ass off and trying to get as much practice in as I can, because I would like to. I enjoy Warhammer too much to be inconsistent with it at this point. So.
Listen, if we still don't have tournaments going on next November, I think we got bigger problems in Warhammer.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, so
it's true.
But I wholly endorse Du Bois. I think everyone in this chat is just like, Du Bois, yes, good, attend.
Yeah, that's
if you have to pick one and it's not Adepticon, definitely Du Bois.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
it surprises me that it hasn't gotten more attention, because people.
I mean, it's
fly
pretty big.
It.
It's pretty big. And it's also increasing in size at a pretty good pace. Like, you and I remember 2017, and there were like 30, 35 of us, and last year there were like 90. Yep. So I'd say that was pretty good. So it's definitely the one to go to if you appreciate the if you don't really have the money or dislike the ambiance of a big bustling convention. It's definitely affordable. It's in the middle of nowhere, and that's almost to its benefit, because the hotel is excellent for the price. I really like. We might need to do a special broadcast for. We could have been at Du Bois, but we're.
I brought that idea up when I don't know who operates the Du Bois Facebook account.
Gary does.
Oh, it's Gary. So then I was basically replying to Gary. It was like, so should we do some sort of virtual thing for Du Bois? No, I'll have to reach out to Gary directly now. Because he's the Age of Sigmar TO.
No, Josh is. Gary owns it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Josh has been the TO for Age of Sigmar for a while. So
I thought he was just like the organizer of the day.
No. Gary's the owner. Our Josh, like Warhammer Weekly, Corn Josh, is now the TO, and So
and who runs the 40K side?
That would be the guy in Syracuse, Brian Horton. That's Millennium Hobbies. They have their own thing. Like when they were talking about doing like giveaways and stuff for one of their events that was supposed to happen, that was all Brian. Like 40K is like its own city almost, because that's like 200 people.
It almost makes sense for that.
Yeah. Hoycon in the chat is just like, yeah, Gary loves his Blood Bowl. Like Blood Bowl is his bread and butter. Oh God, Rochester garbage plate night. My arteries. No. Yeah, but I think it would be cool to do like a special stream for Du Bois, maybe where we do like, I don't know, like for this channel is like mostly match play. Maybe like a list review. This was the list I was going to bring to Du Bois. Let's break it down.
Yeah.
Which means that you got to learn your Lumineth in a month's time if we're going to do that, or in 3 weeks' time, because Du Bois is going to be in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, because then I send you my Lumineth list and tell you what it does, and you're going to be like, why?
Yeah.
So
I have a feeling we'll be having some conversations after I start dissecting the Lumineth book.
Good, because I can't be the only person obsessed with this thing and not pout like Tom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I legitimately have obsessive compulsive disorder, so once I start digging into this thing, I can guarantee you it will consume you.
Good, because
I just opened up the new box. You can't see a thing. But
yeah,
I opened up the Lumineth
there we
box
go.
here for the
Very
first
nice.
time. So I got the new collector's book right now in my hand.
Yep.
Beautiful.
I got it over here. Was using it earlier to the chat. I was explaining to the chat how the lore of the mountain, the lore of the high peaks works, and it's just very strange spells, and how just like some of these are just like, I don't want to know. When I had the opportunity to go to the open day last year, I had the opportunity to meet and speak with Jervis Johnson in person for the first time. I've been a fan of this hobby since I was a child, and getting to talk to them was definitely like a transcendent experience for me as a hobbyist. But I've never been enough of a, like, I've never been passionate enough about the game design to ask the right questions of him about why certain rules are worded in a way that just feels like a detriment for there to just be used at all. Some of the spells in the mountain lore are just bad, and they take forever to just understand, to implement in the game if I were to use them. I cast Assault of Stone, and then I have to pick out the specific numbers of the dice and stuff like that. That's the one, that's number 6 spell, where I roll an amount of dice equal to the casting, the roll I cast. And if I roll equal to or above your armor save, you take mortal wounds, but if I roll a 1 or a 2, it always fails. So I have to pick specifically, like, no, I have to roll under it. Oh God!
Yeah, you can't even remember what it says.
Right. It's all bad. Like it just doesn't work. It's just the math. Just I'm waiting for his fate.
I think. I mean, I can give you what I think the problem is, and I think this problem comes up a lot with Games Workshop, in that their financial statements look like a really big company, but I don't think they have a lot of employees.
That's probably still true.
And with, design and development, like the number of people on their team that are dedicated to Age of Sigmar, they clearly have not divided design and development.
Yes.
And their people doing the proofreading are probably the same people that are writing the rules in the other half of the book. So I think they just don't have enough eyes on the wording to have somebody there that's, it's very easy to start falling into groupthink.
Yeah.
And once you have everybody kind of thinking in the same way, you have the common language, all of that. Like, you don't have like that guy in the other department that you're pulling in and say, hey, can you read this for me and understand it?
Yes.
And I think they probably need to do that more. Like one of the things that Wizards of the Coast does is that they legitimately, like, they play test cards with, like, they just like play test at lunchtime with random people in the company.
Yes.
So, like, if a card doesn't make sense, the person that plays once a week, like, just doing play testing, and like that's not their job. They don't like think about Magic full time, like,
right.
That's actually into it. There's like, somebody from the accounting department's just pitching in and helping out with some play testing. They're going to have a very different read on what a card means than, somebody that's been playing Magic since Alpha.
Apparently, we are all in blue shirts, which I believe is the uniform of the guys at Du Bois. So we're already halfway to our Du Bois cast idea.
Sweet.
Yeah. I am going to talk to Gary about that.
Mm-hmm. It would be nice to have him as a guest and just try and talk about like the history of like the event and his relationship with the hobby.
Gary's an interesting dude.
Yes, I really enjoy his company. It's again, it's a shame that it's not happening this year, but there will be next year. I'm relatively confident of that. I think we all are.
Yep. I hope so.
Yeah. I'm planning it as if it is. Like I want if there's one rule that is just prevailing across all of the years is that people at Du Bois, they come to play. If you are you're more likely to run up against a competitive player, even if they're also a fun person and a hobbyist, like a really passionate hobbyist. They're also more likely to really know a lot about the game. So I think it's I'm trying to use the best language here in terms of just coming guns blazing, basically, is the best way.
The way that I think about it is, any event is going to reflect on like the culture of the region it's in.
Yes.
And the culture of the Northeast in general, which is where that event is pulling from. And it's mostly New England, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania.
Right. With a little bit of Maryland.
Yeah. But, still.
Right. It's still mostly that. Yes.
It's still that same mindset where, and we can all kind of really link it back to like New York City. It's fast paced. It's no bullshit. It's just, it is what it is. Everybody's there to do a thing. And, everybody's there to have a good time too. It's not like there is not a bar right outside the door.
Right.
But it has the Northeast culture about it that it's very, like, it's very well organized. Everything runs like clockwork. The people there are passionate, and
so my goal, and let this be known live on air, that I would like that to be my goal for next year is 4 wins, 4-1, and best painted. That's my goal. And I'm going to be taking Lumineth. Ryan is in the chat. For those of us not in the U.S., what are these weird names you're mentioning?
Which weird names are you referring to?
So the more I can learn now, and I think now that in my perspective is that we have nothing but time, so I'm going to try and use that as best as I can. It's just like, I've been playing Warhammer since I was a kid. I've been playing with the same people, relatively with the same fantasy Age of Sigmar crowd. How do I just get my head around it in a better way than I have been? Oh, is Maryland a type of ice cream? Yeah.
Get close.
Yeah. Ben and where is Ben? Oh, never mind. Ben and Jerry's is
Vermont, right?
one. Yeah. Same time zone. That's yeah. So I will
more hippies.
Yeah. Going forward, I will be doing I always try and learn more, but it's just like trying to ask myself as I continue to adapt to the changing meta with the battle tone, asking myself those questions posed by Ryan, posed by Coach, yourself, Hooves, because who knows what Broken Realms will bring, and next summer if there's a third edition or not. There may not be. Like, I hope not, but we'll see. Especially
if there is a third edition, I don't think it'll be major changes.
Yeah, that's true. But there could be new mechanics. There could be something we don't expect, which changes our outlook of the game.
Yeah, we didn't see command points coming.
That is true,
and that everything.
Right. I will end on this one optimistic message about the state of the game. Every time we borrow something from 40K, we learn from that mistake and we do it better. We borrowed allies. We made sure that was the main one was formations. Like, people in 7th edition hated formations. It's like, well, why don't you just pay points for that formation? And battalions, we got command points, allies. I'm trying to think of what came after that. Well, so whatever Broken Realms might borrow from 40K, possibly a changing in board size, possibly stratagems, possibly changes to how we cast magic in this game. I think it will be okay in the end, but we have a long way to go between now and next November, and I'm going to do my best to be ready for it.
Yeah, and I've really learned my own lesson from like the events that I've gone to. And I think the really big thing for me is that I need to go in with more of an approach of like, I'm here to have fun. I'm here to drink beers, make friends, have a good time. And if I do well, I do well. Like, I'm going to try and win all my games. Like, it's not like it's not like I'm aiming for the bottom. But I think I need to focus more on just do what I like. Do what feels good. Like, when I went to Nova, I was way too like just gunning for top tables, and it just fell apart because I didn't get enough reps in with the army.
Yeah,
and and I was playing Skaven, and Skaven can be really unforgiving because it's really complicated.
Yeah, Ryan has been posting his ethos in the chat, which I wholly respect. That have fun, be kind. And there's always someone better than you, so stay humble.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say the main advantage of Du Bois over Nova is that you have more space to breathe. I do understand as a TO of Nova that it's like when you cram all those people in that underground bunker and like there's no room between the tables, it can get a little more stressful than it might be, say, where you have just all the space in the world to enjoy yourself and like just be mellow. Even if you're playing one of the most hardcore games of Warhammer with opponents which is like no holds barred, super aggressive lists, the atmosphere is relatively chill and enjoyable.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So it's almost midnight. I think I need to wind this chat down before my son wakes me up in 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been fun. Thanks to everybody else that has been a guest along the way. Hooves, I'm sorry we didn't get to chat more.
That's all right, man. It's all right.
We will catch you on the next one. But it's been fun, and I will see you all later.